Hello, hello, and welcome to From Mrs. to Ms. I'm your host, Andrea Knoche. I'm being joined today by Adam Lane Smith. He is a attachment theory specialist. I'm so happy to have you here, Adam. How are you?
Doing great today. Thank you for having me. I'm excited for this conversation.
Yay, I am too. Let the audience know exactly who you are. So Adam Lane Smith is an MA Psych, is a former licensed marriage and family therapist who has spent 15 years revolutionizing attachment science. As a devoted husband and father of 5, hello, he understands the profound impact of secure attachment in family life. In 2021, he left his clinical practice to teach attachment publicly, launching a digital coaching practice and leading a team of certified specialists to help people worldwide. With a mission to make secure attachment accessible to 1 billion people, Adam shares hundreds of hours of free educational content, hosts a top relationship podcast, and has authored multiple best-selling books. His solution-focused methods have transformed over 1,600 clients' relationships, often achieving in weeks what traditional therapy takes years to accomplish. A sought-after expert, he's built a community of 600,000 plus followers and regularly appears on top media platforms. A round of applause, sir. I love that.
Thank you. And I did all that while having 5 kids. So
I know. I think that's what's even more amazing. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning, Adam. Tell us a story about how you essentially discovered your calling was in attachment theory. What happened to transform your life like that?
yeah. So I had attachment issues growing up as a kid, and
Okay.
nobody knew about attachment theory back then at all. So I had to white knuckle it and fix it all alone by myself without knowing what I was doing when I was about 20, 21. Barely got through it. It was a harrowing experience. And then I said, man, what did I just do? And how can I make sure nobody else has to go through what I just went through? So I went to school, 6 years of schooling, got my master's degree in psychology, marriage and family therapist. And while I was there, I was looking for what is this? What is this thing? And all the teachers were telling us, we don't know what mental health issues come from. It's chemical imbalances. You need drugs, drugs, drugs. And it turns out, way on a back shelf, there was this dusty old theory nobody wanted to talk about or know about called attachment theory. And I really discovered it reading my mentor's book, Dr. Robert Glover, No More Mr. Nice Guy. And in there, he described a lot of the symptoms I had experienced as a kid. And then I put that together with some of the trainings that I looked at online about theories and attachment theory. And it just, boom, it clicked.
It makes
It was the
sense.
answer to why relationships fall apart, why we have mental health diagnoses, why so many kids are unhappy, why the divorce rates are going up, why people are using drugs, why the porn epidemic is out of control. So many societal and relationship issues just clicked into place for me.
Wow.
And I said, this is it. I want to tell everyone in the world about this. And now I'm on a mission to do that.
Oh my gosh, that's quite an adventure. So what kinds of things, when you said you were 2021, that you had to start figuring things out on your own, what were your first steps to figure that out? What kinds of things were you looking at?
Well, I was anxiously attached, which that means for everybody out there who's going to have this, because a lot of you will.
I do.
When you're anxiously attached, when you're a kid, you get love and it's taken away, and it's given and taken away, given and taken away, and you come to the conclusion when you're 1-year-old and brilliant and logical that it must be me. I must be unlovable, and there's something wrong with me, so I have to be approval seeking, what's called a fawning response, make other people like me, and then they won't abandon me. So it's a fear of abandonment, fear of being imperfect, fear of being too visible, because people will see you and then realize that you are worthless. So you have to be very perfectionist and approval seeking at all times in your relationships. And it sucks. It's the worst thing in the world. And I had to fix that and start overcoming that. So what I did was start saying all the things in my relationships that I normally wouldn't say, asking for things very clearly. What I've now built into what's called negotiation-driven communication of, hey, this is what I need. And I don't know if you have capacity for that, but if you do, great. If you don't, can I get you there? And can we take care of each other? Here's what I need. What do you need? Can we meet each other in the middle? It was very almost transactional, but based more on mutual negotiation and care. And then telling people what I was feeling. Hey, guy, friend, I'm overthinking all the time and I hate it. And
Yeah.
instead of me spending 3 hours a day overthinking if I've made you upset, can I just ask you and you tell
Mm.
me? Or if you're ever mad at me, will you just straight out tell me and then we just fix it?
Yeah.
Can we agree in this relationship that if something goes wrong, we're not just going to blow it up and leave, but one of us will go to the other one and we'll have mediation and we'll work on it together. And as I did this, it resolved all those underlying fears I had. And as I
Wow.
experienced new relationships, it was phenomenal. I don't know if you've ever had a relationship that was that clear and that easy, but it's life changing.
No, I'm still waiting for it. It could
Well,
come
hey,
in.
I'm here to help you build them then.
Yeah,
Let's
let's
do
get
it here
on
today.
So were people responsive? Like, sometimes I feel when I'm talking to some of my girlfriends and I'm just like, woe is me. Oh, I went on another date with this guy and it was just like a disaster and he didn't want this, and I've gone through all of these different phases. I've gone through, I believe, the anxious attachment. I feel like I'm now more in the secure attachment. I think I've also been in the avoided. I think I've done them all. And I think that sometimes of course, you find who your true friends are the people that are willing to listen to what you have to say and help you get there. Did you find that there were people that were like, ugh, this guy's driving me nuts. I'm out. He wants too much from me. Did you find that at all?
No, there were no
No.
unstable people in my life at that time. No, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
When you start this journey, you realize, number one, that you're usually surrounded by unhealthy people who are
Yes.
there because you don't have boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And you get a lot of negative feedback often at first from those people who don't like that the gravy train is over.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, those people are loud and boisterous right up in your face, and you have to build first the awareness of what you want in life. I work with a lot of my clients on this. What are your long-term goals? What are your ethics?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you violating those things for people who don't even like you?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Build your long-term goals, build your ethics, focus on those, make your decisions according to those, and then something magical happens.
Yeah.
You clear away the people who are in the way of your goal and they leave because the free ride is over.
Yep.
But then the people who value that and who respect you and who are going to help you get there, they actually
around.
demand this of you. They don't want to be in a relationship with you unless you're pursuing your goals and ethics because they don't trust you if you're emotions based. So you start over time pulling in amazing people who love you because you are open and transparent. And therein lies a lot of the healing and the biofeedback. I get into all the brain chemicals and everything that does this, but it transforms you as a human being.
And I love that because their view of you does change. I've noticed that as I've grown, as I've learned, and, now I'm in this area, I find people looking to me more for the answers. Whereas before they're like, oh gosh, here she goes again. She's lost and they're telling me all this stuff. And now they're looking to me for the answers. So I'm sure you get that a lot. People are wanting to know what you know. So something that stood out to me on your Instagram was a post that stated, it said, here's the hard truth most therapists won't tell you. Healing your attachment style is not possible. Tell us why. What does that mean? And have we lost hope?
Here's what I say. Healing your attachment style is not possible because it's not a wound. It's not something that's wrong with you. It's not something you have to sit and listen to, 300 hours of regressive childhood treatment sort of thing. You shouldn't be laying on a couch crying about your childhood for 6 years in therapy. It's not about healing your attachment. It's about fixing it, repairing it. These are learned behaviors and they've been rewarded by additional behaviors. So what you need to do is change the behavior pattern. You need to fix it. Attachment styles can and should be fixed. And you and I have both made a lot of changes in our lifetime as we've done that. I hate this concept that we talk about online of the mother wound or the father wound. These are not wounds. These are behavior patterns. They're traumas, right? These are human relationship traumas to specifically responses to human relationships, intimate ones. So it's a trauma pattern that you have to fix. You desensitize, you reprogram, you explore the new benefits, and then you change and become healthy in a new direction. It's like repairing the bad engine on a car. It's the same process. You repair and replace.
Oh, I love that. Now, before we move on, I just want to make sure that any of the listeners know exactly what the attachment styles are. I've done many shows on the attachment styles, but if they're just tuning in, can you just give us a brief description of each before we continue on?
Yeah. Do you want the basics or do you want my updated version as I'm updating the feel of attachment?
Update us. Let's go.
Ooh. So the update I made was to split each of the 4 attachment styles into subtypes because when Bowlby created the attachment pieces back in the 50s, it was a lot less common. It was maybe 30% of people back then had attachment issues.
Mhm.
Now there's an estimated 65% to 75% of people with attachment issues right
Ooh,
now in
is that just
America.
because of recognition? Because they recognize
No,
it,
no,
or
no,
like you said,
no.
oh,
It's been getting drastically worse over the last 100 years of
okay.
breaking family connections. There's 5 primary safety nets we're supposed to experience with social connections that we no longer have any of those 5. So those have
Mhm.
fallen apart. The dopamine machines, the little nightmare rectangles we carry in our pocket, the phones, those have made social interactions much worse. They're replacing the serotonin in our relationships with dopamine instead, which is a
Oof.
big driver of loneliness and depression as well.
And it's those
Uh,
the quick hits and the quick fixes we're getting from the likes and
Massive,
the
massive.
mhm.
Okay, we'll go through these really quick then. So, when you are a child, if your caregivers give you inconsistent love for any variety of reasons, maybe they're massively anxious, they're at work all the time, they're exhausted, they're traumatized, they could be abusive. You could go into daycare way too early for way too long. You might get put into the NICU and be scared and terrified for 3 weeks. For whatever reason, you learn that you are the problem and you're unlovable. You're given oxytocin, the bonding hormone that makes you feel safe, and it's ripped away. So then you have a withdrawal cycle and fear and trauma
Mhm.
over and over and over. You develop what's called learned helplessness. You think it's your fault. You develop emotional impermanence. So when someone's not in front of you giving love and reassurance, you think they're falling out of love with you constantly, like when they don't respond for 20 minutes to a text. This is anxious attachment style. In essence, they perform as if they are addicted to the bonding hormone oxytocin, and they are dependent on other people to give it to them.
Mhm.
Oxytocin, when you have it in your system, it floods you and makes you feel safe because it then floods you with GABA, gamma aminobutyric acid, which suppresses cortisol levels. So you are like a flower waiting to be pollinated by someone who comes along and floods you with oxytocin,
Mhm.
usually through a process called love bombing, where they
Mm.
saturate you with attention and kindness and care and then show you that you are loved and cared for, sometimes temporarily. That's anxious attachment style. And you crave approval, you crave connection, but you feel ultimately unworthy. So you are endlessly performing and can never really relax.
Oh.
That splits into 2 subtypes. I call it toxic anxious, where they are resentful, angry, controlling, bitter, and they say, I have done so many things for you. Why don't you love me? Why haven't you figured out what I want? Why don't you know my favorite flower? Why don't you know my favorite date? And eventually they just simmer and explode with this resentment. They're very transactional. My mentor, Dr. Robert Glover, calls it covert contracts. I'll do 10 nice things for you, but you better do that one nice thing for me.
Mm.
It's the guy who's doing all the chores around the house, and when his wife doesn't respond with sex, she's just grateful. Now he's angry and bitter and
Yes.
simmering because he didn't get free sex in exchange for all his chores.
Oof.
So that chore play does not work. That's toxic anxious.
Doesn't work.
Toxic anxious.
Toxic anxious.
Nurturing
Okay.
anxious.
Mhm.
Nurturing anxious, and a lot of the women listening might fall into this category,
Mhm.
is they know what it's like not to feel loved, so they try to give love to others. They try to care for others. They might fall into codependency, where they are facilitating bad behaviors in others, but because they're trying to help other people and they don't want anyone to suffer. But
Mhm.
it's still that performance driven, I'm not good enough. They're self-martyring. They're the people who just drive themselves into the ground to take care of everyone around them, and meanwhile nobody really is properly grateful or even appreciates them in the right
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
That's anxious.
Mm.
Any questions on that so far?
No, I think I'm nurturing.
Yeah. That's a good
I'm a
thing.
little
That's a good
nurturing
thing.
anxious.
That's all right. That's all right.
Let's see what else I got.
Let's flip to the other side. So if you're a
Okay.
child and you don't get oxytocin, and instead you are scared to death or treated weirdly or badly, or your parents are screaming at each other, or they're completely cold and absent, you do not get oxytocin bonding, and instead you get high cortisol and stress, you develop avoidant attachment style.
Mm.
Avoidant attachment style is, I can't trust other people. They're unpredictable, unstable, and unsafe. I will keep them out with a wall. I am now a lone wolf. I will survive. Nobody has time for me. Nobody's coming to save me. They say that a lot. I have to do everything myself. So they stay internally closed off. Their oxytocin receptors, because they're chronically activated in sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight, oxytocin receptors close and they cannot receive oxytocin. They
Okay.
become very transactional and very mechanical and very tactical. And then they try to give dopamine to other people in relationships, and they're dopamine driven as well, because high cortisol, high dopamine, these are the highest performers on earth. They're executives, they're business owners, they're amazing at finance, at insurance, at risk assessment. Sometimes they split into 2 subtypes. One is manipulative avoidant, where they hate humans and all humans are garbage and humans will take from me, so I can justify manipulative tactics against other people and rationalize shutting you down, rationalize stonewalling you, gaslighting you, lying to you, cheating on you, all kinds of behaviors. That's way off over here. And off the end of that spectrum is things like narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, all sociopathic behaviors off that scale. But over here, you have ethical avoidant, where they want to live and let live. They have moral standards they keep to themselves. They don't share them because they don't want it used against them. They just think other people are not stable. They have to manage other people carefully, because when people are calm, people do okay. But when people get stressed, people turn bad. So I'm just going to make sure everybody's happy. This is maybe the husband who marries the slightly anxious wife and then never gives her emotional intimacy because he doesn't know what that is. He pays all the bills. He does not cheat on her. He just doesn't really connect with her. So he's more cold and distant, not connected to the kids as much, but he's endlessly providing, taking care of. If you ask him, he's like, no, I'm a good dad and a good husband. I take care of all the bills. I work 18 hours a day, even on Saturdays. And I do everything mechanically that I'm supposed to. I am a good dad and a good husband. But his wife is like, I am emotionally starving. The kids are starving. Nobody knows how to connect with him. He is cold and isolated. That's the ethical avoidant guy. I work with a lot of those guys and their partners that come into my coaching.
And so
that's
that seems like a constant pull between the anxious and the avoidant. And is it like just this vicious cycle? Because I would have to believe the avoidance constantly running, the anxious is constantly chasing, and then they get it, and then they go back this way, and then we do it all over again.
You've seen this dance before, haven't you?
I've seen this dance. I'm sure I've played it once.
Yeah.
Joined in.
It is. It's the anxious person offers no strings attached, fun to try to get somebody to give them approval and adopt them like a stray puppy. And the avoidant person jumps in and says, oh, good, we can exchange dopamine back and forth, but they're accidentally flooding the anxious person with oxytocin, which is highly addictive. And then at 5 to 7 months, the novelty dopamine dies in a relationship. So the avoidant person's pleasure and joy stops and falls off a cliff as their responsibility is amping up. And the anxious person is overwhelmingly bonded at this point at 5 to 7 months and is talking about marriage, living together, having babies. And the avoidant person is like starting to feel smothered and choked and strangled. This is why a lot of them break up at 1 year. And it's just because they don't know how to make it continue. And if they do get married, it just stagnates endlessly until they have kids. Then she gets angry and resentful. Then she tries to protect the kids against dad. Dad doesn't understand what's happening. The kids are caught in the middle. She's trying to build a better family, but it's ripping them apart instead. And then they get divorced at 15, 20 years. Very common. And then it just falls apart. And then everybody's left wondering what the hell just happened. It's the anxious and avoidant dance like that.
Wow.
For everybody out there who's asking, is it possible to be both? Yes. This is what we call disorganized style. It means cannot be neatly organized in either category. Sometimes they call it fearful avoidant. They call it disorganized, the original. I've split this into two because it doesn't always resonate for everybody. There's loud disorganized, which they are desperate for love and approval. And the moment they get it, they freak out and they think it's doomed to fail and that they're going to be caught. So they start a mysterious gasoline fire and run away screaming into the night so that you won't notice. And then they feel really lonely. So they come in, kick in your door and say, I'm here to rescue you from the mysterious gasoline fire and try to reconnect with you. And it's over and over and over. So it's hot and cold and hot and cold and hot and cold. And the more you love them, the more they run screaming. And the more you treat them like crap, the more they want to be with you. And no one's more miserable about it than they are. And it's a very intense short-term cycling of emotions, very intensely, and they're very addicted to the oxytocin. But the other one is something that I've started really working on that's been invisible till now. And the reason I had to split all of this actually was for this style in particular was the quiet disorganized. A lot of these women, mostly women, but some men, very high performing in business. If the ethical avoidant man is high performing in business, the quiet disorganized woman is also high performing in business. She has very secret insecurities that she will never share with anybody. On the outside, she looks very avoidant and aloof and distant. Some people call her an ice princess. She's not one to get super engaged in relationships or talking with people much at all, because when people get close to her or try to talk to her, she just freezes solid and doesn't know
Yeah.
what to do. And her brain gets paralyzed trying to figure out what to say. And from the outside, it looks like she's too good to talk to you. She's not interested. She's just
Mm.
cold. She doesn't want to talk to you at all. She's not having a good time. On dates, it's really hard to get through to her. And the only people who do are the people who have the guts to walk up and poke her and say, "You're frozen solid. I can use this." So the more manipulative, boundary
Yeah.
invading partners are the only ones she will connect with. And she's like, "Oh, okay, that's fine. I'll take that on. I'll take on all of your, like, okay, you say that you're like a serial killer, cannibal kind of guy. Well, we all have our difficulties. I guess
Yeah.
I could tolerate that." It's like the bar isn't on the ground. The bar is buried 6 feet underground for her because she grew up with so much trauma.
Yeah.
And they won't really tell you they have a trauma story. They'll relate like the most horrifying childhood details you can imagine in a calm tone of voice and be like, "But, we all have difficulties. We all
Wow.
have challenges." And massively high performing, but very, very, very accommodating, and never going to tell anybody about her emotions. When she finally does get into a relationship, very, very performance driven. How can I make
Mm.
sure you don't hate me enough that you abandon me? But secretly on the inside, she's not going to chase. She's going to withdraw if he pulls away. And it confuses the absolute heck out of avoidant
Ugh.
people because they don't get chased, but also they don't get engaged with quite in the same extent.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting
Sounds like
dynamic.
a
Those are
very
the
sad
six.
and lonely
It's
place to
terrible.
be. Yeah,
It
neither
is.
of
They,
those
they
sounded
usually,
good. To be
yeah, they usually
honest.
come to me. Those ladies usually come to me when they're 55, 60, 65, even 70, and
Mm.
they've lived a lifetime in 20-year marriage with a very unstable person. They're usually serial monogamists, so they've had multiple long-term monogamous relationship kind of things. Sometimes they've had kids, they have adult kids. They barely talk to them because they don't want to be a bother, and they don't really have close friendships as much. They're just very lonely, but very financially savvy, very business savvy, usually retired by the time they end up coming to me. And it's
Mm-hmm.
teaching them human relationships is amazing. It's some of my favorite work, to be honest with you.
Wow. So can people function happily in relationships without ever fixing these attachment wounds, or
Nah,
are they destined for
they can have
failure?
moments of happiness.
But
There's secure attachment that you can grow up with. This
what's
is
the
why
percentage
another
of that of
reason,
people that are really secure? Like 100, is anyone
25 to 35.
and that's
20
100% secure? Like they don't have any of the symptoms, or is it kind of still you got a little bit of everything?
It's not that you are never insecure or ever uncomfortable or ever disconnected or ever have a moment of doubt.
Yeah.
It's that when you have a moment of doubt or difficulty, you just go to the person and say, "Hey, I thought maybe I said something the other day that might have hurt your feelings, and it just occurred to me. Did it bother you? Should we
Mm.
talk about it?" They can immediately go and build cooperative relationships with the people around them. They just check in
Yeah.
because they're not afraid. Their cortisol levels are very low. Their oxytocin is very high. Their serotonin is high. They're very
Mm-hmm.
resilient. So, rejection is not life and death to them. They can just
Mm-hmm.
have normal conversations. And that's easier than the pain of struggling through overthinking 3 hours a night and not able to sleep or live. They just go and resolve the issue by having conversations. Super
Yeah.
easy. And
Wow.
you can also be a lot of people, just like you asked, they say, "Can I ever really become secure? Because I'll never be perfect."
Yeah.
That's why I split that into two different types. I have remade secure. You can
Mm-hmm.
be remade secure. You can remake yourself into a securely attached person as well.
Mm.
You don't have to wait around and wait for everything to be perfect. It's really in your responses and the choices you make.
Cool.
It's not so much in the feelings you have. It's what do you do? How do you respond? How do you resolve? And then how do you move forward in a better way?
So there's hope. I like it. I
So
like
much
it.
hope. Oh
So
my, there
much
is
hope.
only hope. There's no black pills here. It's all white
No.
pills.
And listening to the disorganized ones, that alone would make me want to come to you and work with you and go, get me to one of these other ones. Because that has sounded, I know it just sounds terrifying to be in that spot for your whole life. These women that coming to you at 70 years old, it's like, oh my gosh, you've missed the greatest part of your life being a certain
My
way.
my oldest
Mm.
client was 78 years old,
Oh,
terminally ill, had a year to live, and had 3 children, a bunch of grandkids, and I think one great grandchild. And she asked me that. She said, "Is it too late? Is there no
yeah.
hope? Like, what is the point now?" And I said, "Well, if you view life as a sum of hedonistic pleasure, then yes, you have missed the boat. You have absolutely
Mm.
wasted everything because you haven't experienced maximum pleasure.
Yeah.
But if you look at a legacy,
Yeah.
If you look at your children, if you look at your grandchildren, your family, then if you fix this now, you have such overwhelming urgency to pass on this information and to pass on this wisdom. And you know a billion ways to do it wrong. And now you can learn the right way to do it and pass on that information. That means everything. And now your life has overwhelming value and purpose. So let's get in, let's roll up our sleeves and let's fix this. We spent that year working together. And by the time she passed on, she had transmitted all of that healthy, secure attachment to her children. Her grandchildren were also starting to turn around, and her great-grandchild was being raised now with secure attachment. So it is always time to fix your attachment.
How rewarding. So, okay, talking about maximum fulfillment, or maybe not getting maximum fulfillment, I want to talk about having affairs and cheating within a relationship a little bit. Okay.
Cool. Sounds like a great topic.
Right? So you stated that affairs aren't just about physical attraction. So if cheating isn't just about lust, how much do unmet emotional needs and unresolved trauma and insecure attachment styles drive people towards infidelity?
Cheating is primarily an avoidant trait, not always, but primarily an avoidant thing. For a couple of reasons. One, when your sympathetic nervous system is activated all the time, and you have unregulated cortisol that's just spiking and flooding you, you have closed oxytocin receptors. This means that you cannot feel close and intimate with another human being. That's gone. You also cannot then generate GABA to ever suppress that cortisol level, so it's just unregulated. You are always a nuclear furnace burning out of control. You then can't take your magnesium and synthesize melatonin to sleep deeper at night, or to enter into your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest. So that as you don't rest and digest or stimulate your vagus nerve, you also don't rest deeply at night and get good sleep. You won't generate serotonin much at all. So you will never really feel content or at peace or even happy. So a lot of avoidant people have never felt happy. They're just writing depression symptoms daily for their whole life, while saying only weak people would feel depressed. They think they're fine. They think this is normal. It's a lone wolf survival mode. Now, as they're not sleeping, not resting, not bonding, not feeling content, their hormones tank, whether it's estrogen or testosterone. Their human growth hormone plummets, their immune system drops, and they have higher risk of heart attack, stroke, and heart disease and as they get into their 40s and 50s even. This is early death is what we're talking about. Now, they have to function. And they have to live their life, and they have to go through relationships. So what they do is they get into a relationship, give as much dopamine as they can. Once that dies at 5 to 7 months, they try to white knuckle it and just stay, because they say, you look good on paper and I should like you. So they white knuckle it and just agree to be with you, because they assume there's no better in the world. I'm always going to run out eventually. So then they just stay. And they're miserable, and they're stressed, and they're not connected, and you're unhappy, and you're raising a fuss and saying, hey, we need more. I need more time with you. I need more love. Well, I can't. I'm busy. I'm at work. And they push and push and push. And eventually, as their dopamine binging also gets out of control, they need more. So to them, they have a sexual experience. It is a dopamine experience. If you've ever heard a person who cheats say it meant nothing to me, they mean
Quite
it.
often.
It was it was like, hey, I went and had a really tasty ice cream cone without you. Sorry that you're mad. I won't do it again. I'll let you know next time. This is why a lot of them enter into open relationships, because they think it's the only way to do it, and they don't want to lie to you. But this is what micro cheating, this is what porn use, this is what cheating, all of that leads into. Is I need the dopamine hit. I can't be a good dad or good wife or good anything to you unless I do this. So I'm going to justify it by regulating my stress levels to immerse over here and get this hit. It's because they don't know that oxytocin connection and serotonin bonding exists. So to them, this is all it is. It's like you're starving and you're like, hey, look, there's a candy bar. I may as well just chomp down a candy bar. You've never had a rich, fulfilling meal in your life. That's ultimately what most cheating is coming from. Most. It's I got to get my dopamine hit and I can't do without it. Now, some people are more malicious, more chaotic, more hurtful, but still it's a variant of this. They cannot get the deeper bonding and intimacy. So to them, the affair doesn't mean what it means to the person who's cheated on.
Interesting. What is micro cheating? I hadn't heard that before.
Micro cheating is when you're sitting there on the couch and you look over and he's looking at hot Instagram models and liking their nude photos or DMing
Oh.
them or texting his ex or she's texting her ex, and they're just getting that fix from
Mm-hmm.
somebody or something else, but it hasn't quite crossed the boundary yet
Mm-hmm.
into full affair of any kind. It's just like little hits that are getting toward an inappropriate place.
Interesting. I dated somebody that I think was probably in that field, an older man that needed some sort of validation from women, just saying, constantly secretly texting, like just so they say he's attractive still. It's that need to feel something
Yep.
still, but no
Yeah,
desire to
little
actually
bit
be
of
with them.
dopamine. A little bit of
Hmm.
dopamine. Oh, it feels good. Feels
Yeah.
good when a woman calls me attractive. I need to hear it 18 times a day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that constant chronic dopamine hit is what that is. And that gets worse the more they invest in that, because your dopamine receptors start burning out. Serotonin receptors don't. Oxytocin receptors don't. So as you shift into those, that's the secret sauce for monogamy. But when you have this other pattern, it's the secret sauce for killing monogamy.